March 17, 1968. Robert Kennedy had chosen the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York City to kick off his presidential campaign. Thousands had come out to cheer him on. Less than 3 months later, they returned to say goodbye. At St. Patrick's Cathedral, mourners shared their grief with the Kennedy family, friends, and heads of state, all of whom had become too familiar with tragedy.
Or enlarged in death beyond what he was in life, to be remembered simply as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it, saw war and tried to stop it. As he said many times in many parts of this nation, to those he touched and who sought to touch him, some men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not.
A funeral train carried Robert Kennedy's casket from New York to Washington, D.C. Along its entire route were those paying their final respects. The procession ended at Arlington Cemetery. After a brief candlelight ceremony, Robert Kennedy was laid to rest near his brother, John.
Senator Kennedy's death is a tragedy for a nation and for a family that has known too many tragedies in recent years. Among his last words were these: America is a strong nation. America is a great nation. America is a compassionate nation with an unfinished agenda of business at home and abroad.
At a 20th anniversary memorial service, Robert's oldest son, Congressman Joseph Kennedy, spoke.
We in our family have sorely missed him these past 20 years, and millions of Americans, yearning for his extraordinary mix of compassion and moral toughness, still miss him.
Robert's mother, Rose Kennedy.
What joy he brought us. What an aching void there is without him. We admired him. We loved him. And the world is indeed bleak without him. A devoted husband, a beloved son, an adored brother. I know I shall not see his like again.
We can only guess at how the course of history might have changed had Robert Kennedy lived. We do know the promise that was lost.
Let us dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. Let us dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and for our people. Thank you very much.
Last night at around 10:15, my mother passed on. She was surrounded by her friends and her family and her books and the people and the things that she loved.
For more than a generation, she has been America's unwilling icon. She became the most popular First Lady in history. Her style epitomized an era. Her courage during times of tragedy earned her the admiration of the world. Born Jacqueline Bouvier 64 years ago, she grew up in a privileged family of status in New York. In 1951, the year she graduated from George Washington University, she met a charismatic young senator at a dinner party, John F. Kennedy. But John Davis, Jackie's cousin, who wrote a book about the Kennedys, recalls that at first, Jackie had her doubts.
Oh, you know, he's very charming, but he's so vain. He is always having his hair done specially and puffed up for the cameras. She said he thinks he's going to be president someday.
At just 24, Jackie married the dashing Kennedy, who was 12 years her senior.
How long did you know each other before you were married?
We knew each other about a year.
Where did you go on your honeymoon?
We went to Acapulco, Mexico.
Jackie became a political asset by John's side.
We visited 184 communities, and I think slept in nearly every city in Massachusetts.
After their first child died prematurely, Caroline was born in the winter of 1957. Soon after, they began campaigning as a family.
Pleasure to have you here, and I want you to meet my daughter Caroline and my wife Jackie.
How do you do? I'm glad you had a chance to see something in the Senate.
When he made a run for the presidency in 1960, Kennedy aides feared the public would find Jackie too pretty and too upscale. She proved them all wrong. While Jack won the votes, she won the hearts of America. JFK became the youngest elected president in history. John Jr. was born within weeks. There hadn't been toddlers running around the corridors of the White House for some time. By the time the Kennedys celebrated their first White House Christmas, glamorous Jackie was already making her mark.
She was a whole new, fresh breath of air.
Letitia Baldridge was the Miss Manners of her day and Jackie's social secretary. She says Jackie brought an air of culture and sophistication to the White House.
She brought great musicians and poets and playwrights and everybody to the White House.
In 1962, Jackie totally redecorated America's most famous residence and brought TV cameras inside for a special White House tour.
I feel so strongly that the White House should have as fine a collection of American pictures as possible. It's so important, the setting in which the presidency is presented to the world.
With her own inimitable style, Jackie became America's premier trend-setting First Lady.
There's no question that Mrs. Onassis was probably the greatest fashion icon that ever lived.
2 years ago, I said that, introduced myself in Paris by saying that I was the man who had accompanied Mrs. Kennedy to Paris. I'm getting that same sensation as I travel around Texas.
1963 was the year triumph turned to tragedy. First, Jackie's fourth child, Patrick, died 3 days after he was born. Then the profound tragedy in Dallas, the assassin's bullet that changed American history and rocked the world. Though grief-stricken, Jackie maintained her grace and dignity throughout the ordeal, earning her further admiration that would outlive her. In a surprising move, 5 years later, Jackie married again, this time to a man 28 years older, the Greek shipping tycoon Aristotle Onassis.
He felt in some ways he'd been tricked into the marriage, which was totally untrue. But in his thinking, the way he worked it out, he should never have married her. And I think Jackie felt the same way too.
When Aristotle died 7 years later, Jackie was an ocean away in New York. She was launching a career in publishing. And of all things, Jackie O became a single working mother.
It was Jackie that let women go to work. When Mrs. Onassis entered the workforce, it signaled to women it was okay to go to work.
But over the last 10 years, friends say that most of all, Jackie cherished her privacy. She liked nothing more than blending in anonymously to enjoy life's simple pleasures. Her cancer had spread. The doctors said they could do no more. On Wednesday, she came home to die here at a residence on New York City's Fifth Avenue. Her children and family rallied to her side.
It's a very difficult time for Jackie and for the family, and I think we all just wish her a great deal of love, and there was a great, very warm feeling of family and love that was in her room this morning.
If there is one thing Jackie Kennedy Onassis has taught her family, friends, and the world, it's how to deal with the loss of a loved one. But no one was prepared for her sudden death last night.
She did it in her own way and on her own terms, and we all feel lucky for that. And now she's in God's hands.
Jackie Kennedy Onassis was a paradox, the most public but very private figure the world has known. She was the closest thing to a queen that America ever had. She's left us now, but her legend will outlive us all. There will never be another Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
It was an emotional and private ceremony that touched those who watched the Kennedy motorcade silently pass.
He had a wonderful future. We'll all miss him.
We wanted to come down and just get some closure. They're too young to have died. It's awful. It's a tragedy.
The Kennedy family, including John's sister Caroline, Uncle Ted Kennedy, cousins Maria Shriver and William Kennedy Smith, made the trip to sea aboard the USS Briscoe. It comes as no surprise that John Kennedy Jr. was laid to rest at sea. At times, it seems he was born on the water. Images like this are part of the country's collective memory. Carolyn Bassett's mother, Anne Freeman, joined the Kennedys at sea. Yesterday, her grief was palpable. As she planned the memorial service at this Connecticut church for Lauren, who has a twin sister, a woman mentioned she'd just given birth to twins. Mrs. Freeman reportedly said, I used to have twins. And now there's new information about Carolyn Bessette Kennedy's final day. Last Friday, she shopped at New York's Saks Fifth Avenue for a dress for Rory Kennedy's wedding. This is the $1,600 dress she reportedly picked. But on that day, witnesses said Carolyn also expressed concern about flying with John because he just had his cast removed. Meanwhile, preparations continue for Kennedy's memorial service in New York. Media are said to have offered as much as $10,000 for area apartments. But because the President and First Lady will attend, cameras are banned from the windows. And finally, this touching memory of John Kennedy Jr. The photographer who took this loving photo of John and Carolyn just 2 months ago received a personal note from Kennedy in response to the picture.
Thank you very much for sending the photograph of Carolyn and me. I would have been embarrassed to ask for it, but I'm most grateful that you sent it over. It's lovely, and we're glad to have it. Signed, John Kennedy.
Photographer Tyler Mallory believes the note displayed Kennedy's caring nature.
What a fine example of an insight to the real nature of this true gentleman.
Friday, around 8:15 p.m., Kennedy's love for flying took him here, Essex County Airport in Fairfield, New Jersey, where Kennedy kept his single-engine red and white Piper Saratoga. Today, a stunning report claims that Kennedy was concerned about making the flight at night and equally concerned about landing at Martha's Vineyard Airport. He reportedly said his wife, Caroline, was insisting they drop her sister Lauren off in Martha's Vineyard. The same report quotes Kennedy as saying that he was concerned about landing twice because he was not that experienced a pilot. Friday night at 8:38 p.m., Kennedy took off from runway 22. He reportedly intended to leave earlier, but Lauren Bessette was delayed at work. We made the same trip as Kennedy, as First Officer Mark Rado described the potential problems.
I'm having a very difficult time seeing where the land is and where the water is. This is true. This is what we would call a featureless terrain. This is what he would be faced with coming into or out over the water like that. It's a pretty frightening prospect when you're not that experienced, I would think. Oh, yes.
On the night Kennedy disappeared, reports say a local fisherman saw a plane, possibly Kennedy's, flying around 40 feet off the water.
That was me. He had no sense of horizon. He was looking into pitch black out here. Thought he was higher than he was and ended up trying to level off too low and maybe, didn't make it.
At 9:39 p.m., about 1 hour into the flight, and about 10 miles outside Martha's Vineyard, according to radar, Kennedy's Piper dropped from 2,500 feet to 1,800 feet in just seconds.
What possibly would have happened?
Pilot Steve Kahn showed what could have gone wrong inside Kennedy's cockpit.
He might have been looking, and as he's looking, he's turning the yoke. He's turning the yoke, he's in a turn, and he's just looking to see something on the ground, and what happens is he accidentally just might give it some forward pressure. Well, very quickly, the vertical speed indicator is going to start indicating a downward trend, and next thing you know, he could have been in a dive.
John F. Kennedy Jr. was due to arrive on runway 6 of Martha's Vineyard Airport at 10 p.m. The pieces of debris found floating at sea have led many to believe that this was a violent crash.
Hitting the water at that speed or hitting the ground is really the same. It's like going into cement.
Teddy Kennedy sat front and center on his father's lap in this photograph of America's royal family. He was the baby of the clan, a child pampered by his big sisters.
Together we can build the future of Massachusetts.
He served in the Senate for 47 years, the third longest tenure ever, and became known as the Lion of the Senate. But he also endured tragedies and scandals like no other figure in American history. He was by Jackie's side as they escorted the assassinated President Kennedy's casket in 1963. 5 years later, he broke down as he delivered the eulogy at his brother Bobby's funeral.
To be remembered simply as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it, saw war and tried to stop it.
It seemed inevitable that Ted would pick up the torch and run for president. Then came Chappaquiddick. The passenger in his car, 28-year-old Mary Jo Kopechne, drowned. Kennedy went on live TV and tried to explain his behavior.
There is no truth whatever, to the widely circulated suspicions of immoral conduct that have been leveled at my behavior.
Chappaquiddick haunted him. As time passed, he sought to redeem himself. He lost the Democratic nomination to President Jimmy Carter in 1980, but went down swinging.
The cause endures, the hope still lives, and the dream shall never die.
The tragedies continued to mount. He divorced first wife Joan, and it was revealed that she had become an alcoholic. Kennedy had his own drinking problems. He hit bottom in 1991 when he testified at the rape trial of his nephew, William Kennedy Smith.
Did you hear any screams?
No, I did not.
In a remarkable speech that same year, Kennedy confessed that he alone was responsible for his personal problems.
I realize that I alone am responsible for them, and I am the one who must confront them.
But tragedy always seemed to be shadowing him. In 1999, he buried his nephew, John F. Kennedy Jr., who died in a plane crash off Martha's Vineyard. He spoke about it emotionally on 60 Minutes.
I remember the Friday night, night actually that he was lost, and we gathered at Ethel's house. I think we better walk along. Barack Obama!
He passed the Kennedy legacy to a new generation in 2008 when he endorsed Barack Obama for president and became the embodiment of a profile in courage in his final days as he battled the brain tumor that would kill him.
For his family, he was a guardian. For America, he was a defender of a dream.
President Obama pays a somber tribute to Ted Kennedy just hours after the 77-year-old American icon lost his battle with brain cancer.
The First family was just beginning their week-long vacation here on Martha's Vineyard, which is just a short trip across the Nantucket Sound.
Kennedy died at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport shortly before midnight. His 3 children, 2 stepchildren, and wife Vicki by his side. A priest was also with him. Matt Mahar is in Hyannisport.
We're getting new information about how Senator Kennedy spent the last hours of his life. According to a family priest summoned to the Kennedy compound late last night, the senator was surrounded by family and told him he was ready to die. The priest adds that Kennedy was going in and out of consciousness but understood most of what the family was saying.
The truth is, he had expressed to his family that he did want to go to heaven. There was a certain amount of peace.
His funeral will take place Saturday at Boston's Our Lady of Perpetual Help Church.
This is a CBS News special report. An American icon of politics is dead.
Networks broke into late-night programming to announce the death. His death brings to a close a courageous 15-month-long battle. He was released from the hospital in May last year, facing the grim diagnosis of inoperable brain cancer. You can see the white bandage covering his skull. He was determined to speak at the Democratic National Convention, knowing it would likely be his last.
The hope rises again, and the dream lives on.
He lived long enough to see Obama inaugurated president, but moments after greeting the new president at the inauguration lunch, he suffered a seizure and was rushed to the hospital.
Right now, a part of me is with him.
Kennedy spent his final months monitoring the national debate on health care and putting the finishing touches on his memoir, True Compass, out next month. His sister Eunice died 2 weeks ago, and he did not attend her funeral. It was a sure sign his final days had come. The Kennedy clan was out in force Friday, warmly greeting the tens of thousands bidding a final farewell to Senator Ted Kennedy. A teary-eyed Vicki Kennedy was clearly moved by the outpouring of love for her late husband, warmly hugging mourners on the viewing line.
It means so much to all of us. Thank you for being here.
Ted Kennedy's widow impressed everyone with her poise and grace, stepping outside the JFK Library to personally welcome the thousands who showed up.
Our whole family is deeply grateful for this
outpouring of love, and that's why I wanted personally to come and just to thank as many people as I could.
Ted's grieving daughter, Kara, with her 2 children, also chatted with regular folks waiting to pay their respects, and his son Patrick, a member of Congress, shook hands. And Jean Kennedy Smith, Ted's sister and now the sole survivor of Camelot, smiled, speaking with visitors passing by the flag-draped casket. At her side, her son, William Kennedy Smith. The family added extra viewing hours to accommodate the tremendous crowds.
My husband and I live in New Hampshire, and we got up at about 2 and drove down here, and just because we felt it was important to be here.
Among the throngs, Jesse Jackson and Senator John Kerry, and Kennedy after Kennedy poignantly kneeled down in front of the casket, paying their final respects to the late family patriarch. Our Matt Mahar is at the JFK Library.
President Obama is cutting his vacation on Martha's Vineyard short and flying to Boston early. He's concerned that Tropical Storm Danny could cause travel delays, and he doesn't want to miss giving the eulogy for his mentor and friend.
The farewell to Kennedy is filled with pomp and ceremony. An honor guard stands by protecting the casket, switching shifts with military precision. Through the day and night, the Kennedys, with close friends, including famed historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, took turns keeping vigil over the casket, sitting solemnly in front, never leaving Ted alone for a moment.
They set it up so that 4 people sit there, and then when the hour is over, they tap you on the shoulder and another 4 take your place. But watching the faces those people come through, some of them saluting him, some bowing their Red Sox caps, you felt that they knew this man.
A fitting final tribute to the Lion of the Senate.